Hello, everyone. We'll make a start. I know people are still trickling in, but we'll get going. Welcome to today's webinar with Gathered Here and F&P. If you don't already know me, I'm Fiona Atkinson and I'm the content creator at F&P. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet today, and I would also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. Before I introduce our presenter for today, I'll just go through some quick housekeeping. So in terms of questions, if you have any questions, and we really do encourage and welcome them, please use the Q&A box and not the chat box for your questions. One of the Gathered Here team will be in the background typing answers to some of the questions. If they're simple questions that they can answer quickly, they will just type those answers. So please make sure you use the Q&A box and not the chat box. If there's any longer questions or more detailed questions that we'd like to discuss as a group, Adam will answer those live at the end of the session. So please do put your questions forward. You will receive the webinar slides and a recording by email later this week. So be on the lookout for that. We'll send that by email. So that was the housekeeping, and now I will introduce you to our speaker for today, Adam Herodotus, who is the head of partnerships at Gathered Here. Adam has 15 years experience working within nonprofits, including senior roles at Guide Dogs Victoria, Dialogue in the Dark, and the Helping Hand Group. Today, Adam's going to talk to us about using online wills as a multi-purpose fundraising tool. Adam, thank you for joining us once again, and I'll hand over to you now and join you again for Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fiona, and well done on the surname pronunciation there. That's a doozy, so you've done very well. Look, thank you very much for having us. I think this is probably our fifth or sixth webinar that we've done in partnership with F&P. It's been a while since our last one. We're very happy to be back today. Today we're going to be looking at online wills from a slightly different angle to what many of you might be used to. Obviously, when we're talking about online wills, generally gifts is the #1 metric that we think about in those discussions, or potentially looking at gift value. Certainly those things are incredibly important, and we will touch on that a little bit today, but online wills can actually be used as a multi-purpose fundraising tool beyond simply acquiring gifts. And that's really going to be the focus of what we're talking about today, the ways that online wills can support the goals of an entire organization, not just the gifts and wills team. Before we get into that, I'll give you a quick intro about myself. I think Fiona covered most of that. So certainly a few familiar names in the participants list. I won't harp on about myself too much, but I'm Adam. I'm the head of partnerships at Gathered Here. My role is really all about educating nonprofits about online wills. So that includes helping fundraisers to feel more comfortable with the technology, helping them to understand how online wills can be integrated alongside other bequest activities, and essentially just helping people like yourselves figuring out how online wills can work for your organization, whatever the size, sector, or specific situation might be. My background, as mentioned, is in the nonprofit and for-cause sector, and you can see a few of the organizations I've had the privilege of working with here. I certainly understand some of the challenges that are unique to this line of work and some of the challenges that come up on a day-to-day basis. Gathered Here is a for-purpose organization, but for us, it's really important to ensure that we're being very supportive as a partner to our NFPs. Enough about me, though. Let's jump in and have a bit of a look at how Gathered Here is tracking. Most of you are probably familiar with Gathered Here and online wills at this point, so I will keep it brief. Over 85,000 free wills have now been created on our platform. Will writers are very happy with the service that we provide. Our average review rating is 4.9 stars out of 5, and we have over 4,000 5-star reviews from verified will writers. Charities and nonprofits are also very happy. We currently have over 850 NFP partners across every state, size, and cause area you can imagine. Overall, this has resulted in an estimated $1 billion being pledged to hundreds of worthy causes, so some pretty incredible results. But as incredible as that $1 billion figure is, it's not actually what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the other benefits. So let's have a look. Benefits of online wills go far beyond gifts. Here's a quick overview before we dive into everything. You can use online wills to grow your supporter base, reach new demographics of supporters, deepen your donor relationships, better understand your supporter base, give back to your supporters, establish a passive revenue stream, forecast future revenue, and analyze campaign success. There's quite a bit to get through here, so let's get started. First up, how can online wills help you to grow your overall supporter base? Well, on average, over 3,000 wills are written on Gathered Here every month. The graph on the right here shows the number of will writers through from 2021 to 2024, split by known charity supporters, so those are people who arrive to our platform via a charity affiliated link, compared to what we call high intent will writers, and those are people who have arrived to Gathered Here of their own accord. By using the Gathered Here online will platform as a marketing tool, you can put your organization in front of every single one of those will writers. They see your organization at the moment they're making decisions about their estate and their legacy. And the technology makes it incredibly easy for them to become a supporter. So, does it work? It looks like this. People who go online to write their will, they'll fill in their information and they'll get to a section about pledging a gift to charity. Here, they'll see a few different things. If they've come through a link that you've shared, they'll see section A, but with your own branding. This makes it incredibly easy for them to support you if they would like to do so. But regardless of how they've arrived to our platform, every single will writer will also see sections B and C. Section B will give will writers the option to support a cause area rather than a specific charity. Whatever gift they pledge through this is then split by however many charities are in that group at any one time. The really awesome thing about this feature is that it's very helpful for organizations that don't necessarily have the immediate brand recognition to win people over. Instead, they're requiring support from people who have an affinity for their particular cause area. This type of giving is extremely popular with will writers. We believe a lot of this comes down to the fact that people can sometimes experience some decision paralysis when they start trying to think of one organization to choose over another, or making sure that the organization that they're including is the absolute perfect one. For those perhaps more indecisive people, group giving is a very popular option. Then we have section C, which will writers can browse by cause and select individual charities if they prefer. Again, this is a really great opportunity for your organization to be seen by thousands of potential supporters and a really easy way for them to enter into your supporter network. Importantly, we're also seeing a really positive opt-in rate in terms of how many people are choosing to share their contact info. So not only are they entering your supporter network, but you're then able to keep them there and move them around the donor pyramid. So looking at those opt-in rates a bit more, we can see that half of all new supporters shared their information with charities named in their wills. As a reminder, those new supporters are the ones who didn't arrive via a charity affiliated link. There's a huge growth here from 2021, where less than a quarter of new supporters were sharing their info. So if we go back to thinking about how this impacts the donor pyramid for a second, traditionally, this might be how you've sort of thought about the donor pyramid. I'm sure most of us have worked with this and might even have it pinned up near your desk at one stage or another. Supporters generally come in on a more casual basis at the bottom of the pyramid. So you social media followers and incidental givers, and then we do a lot of work to kind of gently move them up the pyramid. If we kind of consider how online wills has changed the pyramid, a little bit more like this. So we see people entering the organization at the top as well as the bottom, and supporters are then moving a bit more fluidly throughout the pyramid. How do we know this? It's not just ideas, our partners are actually telling us. So here we have some feedback received from one of our partners at Catholic Mission. I won't read it word for word here, but they found that the Gathered Here platform is a great cash donor acquisition tool, as well as a bequester acquisition tool. They found that many of their online will donors have since become cash givers around $100 to $200 a year. They're attending events and gradually increasing their giving. Now, they haven't had any confirmed crossover with major donors yet, but they've observed a clear growth in engagement, which is obviously amazing news and really demonstrates how online wills can benefit not just the bequest team, but also other teams within your organization. Okay, staying on the same theme of your supporters, I wanted to talk to you a bit about how online wills can be used to start to reach demographics that your organization may previously have struggled to connect with. So what we're looking at here is a real breakdown of supporters' locations for a small regional Victorian charity that we work with. This organization operates exclusively delivering on-site support in Victoria. Despite their very localized cause, they've been able to reach supporters in other parts of the country. In fact, 62% of their gifts now come from outside of Victoria. and this isn't a one-off. Here we have a health charity which exclusively offers support in Western Australia. Again, same as the previous charity, they've been able to reach supporters beyond their typical supporter base, and now 72% of their digital requests are from interstate supporters, the majority of which will be new to the organization. And this is largely down to those group listings that I mentioned earlier, which, as a reminder, is this section here. So this is where people are able to support a group of charities under a specific cause area rather than picking a specific organization. By doing this, supporters might end up supporting an organization that they don't have a strong personal affiliation with, but at the end of the day, they support that area because it's a cause that's important. Of course, this is all completely transparent for will writers. All they have to do is click on the box on the platform and it will open up to show them exactly which organizations are in the category at any given moment. Here's some feedback from one of our other partners, Tony Featherston, who's the future giving lead at Cottage by the Sea. Tony told us that one of the things that really got their organization into online wills was their ability to generate national exposure. Similar to the two charities I mentioned before, Cottage by the Sea is also a state-based organization, but with online wills, they were able to start reaching a national audience. Tony and his team trialed Gathered Here for 12 months to begin with, went very well. Now they're seeing 60% of their gifts come from interstate. So staying on the theme of supporters a bit more, let's talk about how online wills can help you to better understand your current supporter base. What we're looking at here is a breakdown of the ages of everyone who's pledged to gift via Gathered Here between the beginning of 2021 and the end of 2024. You can see here we have 14% of gifts, or around $141 million, was pledged by people over the age of 65, and 32% of gifts, or around $292 million, was pledged by people over 55. We can also start to see where those gifts are coming from. So we have a bit of location breakdown here. 44% of gifts coming from either New South Wales or Victoria, 17% of gifts coming from New Zealand. We can then get into looking at the gifts pledged and the split between parents and non-parents. Interestingly here, we can see that it's almost an exact split between those two groups. But when we start looking at gift value, that leans heavily from non-parents. But why am I telling you all of this? Well, the important thing here is to understand that by using online wills, you can start to find out this level of data about your own bequest supporter base. Here are some screenshots from within our gift and will management platform of one of our real charity partners. You can see here that this organization's support base leans heavily on those with no children. Now, this might mean that they want to tailor their comms towards those non-parents, or they might want to invest in a more targeted approach to looking after those supporters that do have children and start engaging with them as well. Perhaps they'd like to do both and really maximize their reach. The strategy is completely up to you, but the important thing here is that now you have the information you need to make some informed decisions there around your strategies. You can also see the age of your supporters here and where they're from. Again, with this knowledge and understanding in mind, you can start to tailor your outreach, tailor your strategies, and best suit those individuals. And importantly, these online wills that you're giving to your supporters really empowers you to give back to them. This is a free service that you're offering them, but it's also an incredibly powerful service. You're helping your supporters to do all of these different things: name beneficiaries, nominate executors, divide their assets, and nominate guardians for their children and pets, gift specific items that they might treasure. You can get a discount on life insurance. You can support any NFPs that they would like to include in their will, even things like planning out their funeral or leaving instructions for others to do so. We're seeing a lot of people take up this offer. The graph here looks at the known charity supporters who have written a will via Gathered Here. And as you can see, the growth here is really incredible. A huge amount of supporters are taking up this opportunity. The average will typically cost somewhere around the $300 to $3,000 mark, depending on the solicitor. Online wills generally range between $150 to $200. But with Gathered Here, this is a completely free will with unlimited and free updates for life. Better still, we know that not only are people taking up this offer, but they're also really happy with the service. And we mentioned our reviews before, but diving into that a little bit more, we can look at the user reviews for Gathered Here online wills. These are all verified will writers. They only get the link to leave a review once they've actually completed their will, and you can see they are overwhelmingly positive. 99% of will writers recommend the service. We have a 4.9% star rating. Now, I'm not just including this as a humble brag, although it is nice to get that in there for all of you today, but including this to really demonstrate that people really do appreciate the service. And it's a way of you being able to give back to your supporters and to help them out like they've helped you out. It doesn't have to cost you anything, and importantly, it doesn't have to cost them anything either. There really is an opportunity here for charities to lean into that messaging. That an online will is a benefit rather than just a vehicle to pledge a gift. And actually, building on that a little bit more, I want to look at a quote from our probate lawyer to really demonstrate that. So this is Rika. Some of you might have seen Rika in other webinars. We've got our biggest legal questions webinar is making the rounds at the moment, I believe. The quote here from Rika is actually aimed directly at will writers. But what Rika is saying here is really just highlighting the benefits of writing a will going far beyond supporting a charity. Can help to alleviate confusion for loved ones and provide guidance on who should be in charge, who inherits what, who looks after pet and children, funeral, all of those things. At the end of the day, it can save the people closest to you a lot of stress and money at a time which is already emotionally fraught. All of this and the ability to better understand your supporters, being able to give something back to them to help them protect their loved ones, it can really help to deepen your donor relationships. Here's what one of our partners had to say about that. Kids Cancer Project has said to us that the platform gives them the opportunity to really create relationships with their supporters, build connections with them, and open up a discussion around other ways to give. On the subject of looking at those other ways of giving, I wanted to touch base on another element of the platform, which can really help organizations to deeper donor relationships. And that's around the specific item gifts that we see coming through. Now, these specific item gifts are a funny one. Sometimes we see incredibly high value gifts coming through. We've seen quite a few residential properties pledged to charities via the platform, which, as you can appreciate, are sometimes worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. We do also see a number of gifts coming through which aren't necessarily financially valuable, but they do offer some amazing opportunity for charities to really connect with the donor on a personal level. So we've seen things like very niche medical equipment pledged to a charity that focuses on a specific illness, things like mobility aids donated to relevant causes. We've also seen gifts that give a really unique insight into a person's lifestyle, their interests, things like artwork, musical instruments, and even sports memorabilia. We saw one will writer pledge their entire drag costume collection to a youth LGBTQI plus charity. Now, these items might not necessarily have high financial value, but they do offer a brilliant jumping off point to connect with that donor, maybe inviting them to events that align with their interests, or even being inspired to organize things that align with their interests based on those gifts. Now, these gifts only make up around 1% to 2% of the total gifts that we see coming through the platform, but we're still talking about hundreds of gifts coming through. And importantly, when we are talking about that value side of things, we do see 45% of the wills that include a specific gift also include a residual or monetary gift as well. So there's a really big opportunity here to engage with the people while also still ensuring that we're looking after the bequest revenue side of things as well. Okay, I think we've talked enough about the supporter side of things. I want to talk to you a bit more about how you can use online wills to make your life easier. Now, as a lot of you know, there are two main ways that you can use online wills. You can do active outreach to your existing supporters, whether that's via emails, flyers, SMS, whatever else you can think of, in the hopes of kind of converting those existing supporters into bequesters. It's a relatively low cost strategy, but it does require a bit more of a time investment on your part, and you're generally at the mercy of things like comms calendars and other campaigns or obligations within the organization. On the other hand, you can opt for more passive fundraising, where you're attracting new bequesters from those high visibility areas of the online will platform that we talked about earlier. As a reminder, that's these sections here. So you have thousands of will writers coming through this channel every month and seeing your organization. With this passive fundraising, it's really quite hands-off for you. Other than topping up the credits in the back end of the platform, you really don't have to do much else here. Now, admittedly, it is a higher cost compared to the more active outreach. It's traditionally associated with bequest fundraising, but this requires significantly less time investment from you and your team. And importantly, the results that we're seeing here are phenomenal when we look at return on investment. So here's a screenshot from within our gift symbols management platform, looking exclusively at the gifts generated from those high visibility areas. Credits, which secure you a spot in those high visibility areas, cost less than $200 each, and they get cheaper the more you buy. Now, looking at this particular organization, our records show that this is a medium to large animal charity based up in Queensland. And they've spent a total of around $20,000 on advertising and annual subscriptions with Gathered Here over 2 years. Now, looking exclusively at the advertising stream, they've generated 96 gifts worth an estimated future value of $2.3 million. Looking at the average gift value there per gift, even if just one of those gifts comes to reality in the future, that would cover the entire cost of their expenditure over a few years. And that's without considering any gifts pledged via their own active outreach as well. When we look at those two streams together, they've actually received around $4 million in estimated future gift value. Now, that's obviously a huge return on investment, but we do appreciate that plenty of organizations might need to start things off a little bit more tentatively. Because you have complete control over how many credits you purchase, you can create a passive stream, which is as big or as little as you'd like. Let's have a look. Here we can see an organization with a much more modest budget. This is a small children's charity that spent around $7,000 on subscriptions and advertising over about the span of a year and a half. Looking only at their passive revenue, they've generated around $290,000 in future gift value. Again, just one of those gifts coming through is likely enough to cover the entire expenditure for this organization. This organization is actually an example of an NFP partner that uses Gathered Here exclusively for that passive fundraising. They've set it up entirely as a passive revenue stream, and they haven't done any active outreach to their supporters directly. This is what works for them right now, and they're seeing some pretty awesome results here that we're quite proud of. Now, obviously, the most effective use of online wills would be to combine the active fundraising with the passive fundraising. And we appreciate that that's not always possible for a lot of organizations, so you do have that flexibility with our platform. We appreciate sometimes you might be time poor, sometimes you might be financially restricted, but with online wills, you do have a lot of flexibility to move between both active and passive revenue streams, which can be a huge benefit. Last couple of things I want to talk about here are around tracking and forecasting. So online wills offer an incredible tool for forecasting future revenue. We use a fairly conservative figure right now in our platform to account for the possibility that some gifts may not eventuate, and because for us it's very important that we never overpromise or underdeliver. Even taking that into consideration, though, being able to get an estimated outlook on future bequest revenue is a huge step towards being able to do a bit more strategic work around bequest fundraising in general. It provides you a bit more clarity that just a few years ago would have been almost impossible to come by. Of course, that clarity goes far beyond just revenue. As you've probably seen throughout the slides we've run through today, there are a lot of different tracking and analytics tools connected with our gift symbols management platform. And one key area around that is looking at campaign success. Every tracking metric can be broken down by a specific campaign. You can get incredibly granular with that. Let's say you decide to run a series of 3 emails encouraging your supporters to write a will and pledge a gift. You can keep things very simple and use one tracker for that whole campaign. So you could compare how it performed against other similar campaigns, maybe year on year or quarter by quarter. Or you could create 3 distinct trackers, one for each email, and that will allow you to see which one of those emails was more persuasive. You could even go as far as using multiple trackers for within one email itself. Perhaps you want to test if messaging around giving a 1% gift has a higher impact compared to messaging around leaving a 10% gift. All you'd have to do is create 2 different trackers in our platform, and you'd be able to see all of those results come through in your dashboard. The possibilities here are pretty limitless. It's completely up to you how in-depth you go with this. Again, that's the beauty of online wills. They can be used whether you have an afternoon to spare to dedicate to this outreach or an entire quarter, something a bit more rooted in the strategy across the organization. There you go. So that kind of brings us to the end of the presentation. If you're interested in joining us, I just want to remind you that you can do so for absolutely no cost. You can simply scan the QR code here and get started. You can visit the URL that we have along the bottom here, It's a pretty quick and simple process to join gathered here, but yeah, you can get set up in a matter of minutes. But yeah, before we go, we've got some time for Q&A, so happy to open the floor for any questions that anyone has.
Thanks so much, Adam, for that.
Pleasure.
I can see that Nicola's typing an answer to Rosalind's question, and a couple of people asked about probate. I do suggest that they just go to the Q&A box and have a look at the responses there. You could even copy and paste them if you want to take note of that. I did. First of all, I just wanted to say something that stood out for me, aside from the wonderful information that you shared about online wills, was you mentioned some client feedback, and there was a gentleman whose role title was future giving lead, and I just loved that. Like, I've never heard that before, and I know the whole terminology around gifts and wills is hotly debated, and what should we call ourselves, and people don't like role titles that relate to death, etc. So I really loved future giving lead. Anyway, that just stood out for me. I had written down a question here, and I'm sorry if you covered this. I don't think you did. I just wondered if you're getting any feedback about how many online will sign-ups are known to an organization versus unknown that are coming through the Gathered Here platform.
Yeah, look, I mean, we have that data. I think the difficult thing with that is it does really vary depending on kind of which strategy an organization is taking. As we mentioned, we have a number of partners who really are setting up more as that passive revenue stream. They're kind of utilizing more of the advertising opportunity with us. They have a much higher rate of new supporters coming through. We have other partners who don't touch that side of things at all, and everything is really via that more active outreach. So it really does depend. If we look at things broadly across the board, we sit at it sits between about 70 and 80% of gifts coming through are from new supporters to the organization. But again, that can vary a lot depending on the size of the organization, how many campaigns they're running, and that type of thing.
Okay, lovely. And I was interested to know if you had any figures around how many people opt for that kind of option to choose more than one nonprofit to pledge to.
Yeah, it's grown a lot. So that's a relatively new feature that we've added in. I say new, it's probably been around for about 18 months or maybe longer now. So it has been steadily growing. We do a lot of work with our partners to kind of test those results, monitor what's coming through, and make sure that we're seeing, a really consistent stream of gifts, but also that they're the right types of gifts and the right types of supporters that we want to see coming through. I don't have an exact count of that breakdown. Again, it does vary a lot per organization. When we start looking at those group listings, the cause area there, it can make a really big difference. I think probably to the surprise of no one, the charities that we work with that sit in groups like animals, for example, see a very high rate of gifts coming through. People will see that and support that cause. Some of the other organizations that we work with, the groups are maybe a bit less front of mind for people when they get to that group listing. But percentage wise, in terms of those gifts coming through, we do see a pretty significant value. One of the things that our team has been working on, again, working with our partners, but looking at being a bit more strategic with those group listings as well, around various sort of awareness weeks or months and that type of thing, and kind of including relevant group listings based on that. So we had International Women's Day not too long ago, and we created a group specifically for organizations that we work with in that area. So doing that type of thing, and I think that's really important when we talk about the marketing side of thing, and really that opportunity to engage with new supporters, tying to those more broad scale campaigns that are going on, and yeah, really leaning into that to give will writers the opportunity to easy support something that might be quite relevant to them at a point in time as well.
Absolutely. There is a question here from Maria. I think Nicola answered a question, then she's come back with a bit more, asking for a bit more detail. So she said it would be interesting to see the age of these givers. Nicola said you can see more about the average age of will writers and bequesters in our gifts, 2025 Gifts and Wills report. And Nicola has linked that, everyone. And we'll stick the link. I'll just stick that link in the chat as well. So that report looks at wills written from January 2021 to December 2024. And then Maria has said, sorry, I should have elaborated. I was talking about the animal charity you were talking about. So many wills are written by younger people who will probably change their wills many times. Um, I'm not sure what the question is there, Maria. Yeah, it looks like you're going back to some of the age data, Adam.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the that specific slide now. So I went to the broad age graph. I think it was this one here. So yeah, we don't have age on this particular slide. We do have that data. That's part of the breakdown there. Look at that. I think that that feedback is something that we do certainly hear. When we look at online wills, it is generally a younger cohort of people than what we sort of traditionally think about in the bequest space. I think people are often surprised by when we do look at some of the data from that report, for example. I think it's older than what we maybe expect from an online platform, but probably younger than some of that traditional work that we do. I think the really important thing there, I mean, it's a lot of what this webinar was about. It's thinking about the other ways that can be helpful. I think it's important that we, as a sector, start to think about, what does stewardship look like for someone who's in their late 30s, they've written an online will, they're completely new to your organization. That's probably a very different stewardship journey to your traditional, this is an 85-year-old widow who's been known to the organization for 25 years. It's not going to be the same relationship that those will writers want. They're not going to see value in the same invitations to high teas and things like that. But starting to see some of those benefits that we covered today, looking at those maybe younger will writers or new supporters that are now starting to move into, it's incidental giving now, but maybe starting to convert them into regular givers and kind of moving through that traditional donor pyramid in different ways. But even looking at things like engagement, I think we probably don't traditionally have a lot of engagement strategies for our confirmed bequesters to become regular givers or volunteers. It's a very different journey that they're on. But what we're seeing now from some of our partners is exactly those opportunities start to open up. And that's where this starts to become really exciting. There's a huge volume of people who are now entering your organization as confirmed bequesters. I think really important though, and probably should have prefaced the entire webinar with this, what we're doing with Gathered Here and probably any online wills platforms, I don't think anyone would suggest that this should replace that traditional gifts and wills work. It's really to supplement that and kind of give you the best of both worlds.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Do both,
Yeah.
cover both bases. Absolutely. A question from Megan Thomas, who says that at FIA last year, it was mentioned that you may be able to connect charities to those who opt out. Is this still something you were thinking of implementing?
Yeah, this funny group of people that we create that there's no checkbox for in Razor's Edge or Salesforce, the confirmed anonymous bequesters. Look, we've done a few different tests with some of our partners. One of the really big things for us to be mindful of when working with our partners, we create this, it's a kind of funny triangle of relationships. We have our relationship with the nonprofit and working with us. There's the nonprofit's relationship with the supporter, obviously as the person that they're sending out an email to or whatever it may be. And then there's the will writer's relationship with us. And we have to be really mindful of anything that we do in any point of that triangle really impacts the other 2 points. We've done a few tests of contacting these confirmed anonymous bequesters on behalf of the organization. Results have been mixed. Some people are happy to be contacted and thanked on behalf of the organization. They're happy to receive an annual report or an invite to an event or something like that. Others are not so happy with getting that email and saying, I told you I didn't want to share this information. Why are you contacting me? So is it something we're still working on? Yes, we don't have a perfect solution for that yet, to be honest, and we wouldn't want to say that we do. It's something that we're working through to make sure that whatever solution we do ultimately implement is one that's really mindful of those different relationships and not tarnishing one for the sake of another. So yeah, certainly open to discussions with anyone who has thoughts on that. It's your relationships with your supporters. Your feedback is certainly valued there. But yeah, it is kind of an ongoing test measure process for us.
Yes, yeah, and it's a really tricky one. If some people appear to be happy to hear from you and some don't, like you just can't anticipate what people are thinking. It's a very tricky one, but yes, hopefully some of the nonprofits you work with can work with you on that. Um,
Yeah, look, I think it's just
yeah,
it's so hard because of the nature of what we're talking about here. I think someone, giving a once-off donation, opting to remain anonymous, and then receiving a thank you on behalf of the organization, I think that's very different to I've written my will, this is my personal legacy, this is my end of life. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Why are you emailing me about this when I've told you I don't want to keep talking about it? So there is a balance there that we need to find the right solution to.
absolutely. There's a question here from Sean Triner, which it's disappeared. I think Nicola's answered. Um, Sean was asking about proportions of leads sent to gathered here by client campaigns, i.e. current known supporters. What proportion do an online will? What proportion includes charity as a residual or percentage? And what proportion include the charity um, as a specific gift? And Nicola has um, recommended looking at the report. I think for things like that with figures, you probably don't have them on the top of your head, Adam. It's probably best to refer to the report.
Yeah, so some of
Yeah.
those, in terms of the split between residual gifts versus specific gifts, we're sitting at about 80% of the gifts coming through are residual.
Yeah.
We sit then about 18 to 19% are specific monetary gifts. And as we spoke about in the webinar, it's like 1 to 2% those specific items. Um, I think the other question there was around, the known supporters versus the kind of high intent will writers. As I said, that does start to vary a lot by organization and really by sector, but broadly we sit at about that 25-75% split. So 25 coming from your organization, 75 coming from gathered here audience or high intent will writers.
Yes. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. A question here from Belinda, which Nicola, you're also typing an answer, but I put it to Adam. With the charity groups by cause, what level of information is supplied to the individual charities about the will writers? Is there opt-out options for the will writers not to be contacted by the individual charities?
Yes, so it's completely up to the individual if they opt into sharing their details or opt out of sharing their details. If they opt in, you will be able to see all of their information, name, date of birth, email address, postal address, whatever it may be. If they opt out, you would still be able to see exactly where that gift came from. So we'll make sure you understand which part of the platform is generating these gifts for you. You'd be able to see the gift amount itself as well. Obviously, can't share their personal details without their consent. In terms of opt-in rates of sharing that data, again, it varies by sector, varies depending on how the individuals come to our platform. But we sit at about 50% of people opting in to share their details. So,
Okay, fantastic. There's no more questions for the time being, Adam. I was just wondering if you could go back to the slide that's got the QR code.
thank you.
Um,
Yes.
and then people can scan that. They can access the 2025 report. Obviously, that will take them through to a website where they can find contact details to get in touch with Gathered Here if they want to work with you, if they've got any further questions. So,
Yeah.
encourage everyone to just scan that QR code. Um, there's no other questions. Was there anything else that you wanted to add, Adam, before we wrap up today?
No, I think that's about it for today. So yeah, as has been mentioned a few times, the Gifts and Wills report came out recently, so there's some really great stats in there. And I know Nicola's busy typing away in the back end there, but Nicola's done an incredible job on that report. So definitely encourage you to go and check that out if you haven't seen it already. It's been really great being part of online wills as they've been pretty new to Australia and seeing over the years how much data we've really been able to collect and share with everyone. So yeah, even if it's not something immediately on your radar to be looking at online wills, or if you're working with another platform, whatever it may be, would definitely encourage everyone to check that out because there are some really helpful and just interesting stats in there. So definitely grab a copy if you don't have that yet. But yeah, I think that's about it from us otherwise. So,
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Yep, everyone check out the report. Adam, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to do webinars with Gathered Here, and it's
oh, thank you.
you guys are collecting so much interesting data and insights and learning. So thank you very much, and
Oh,
thank
thank you for having us.
Thank you to everyone who joined today. There's lots and lots of thank yous coming in through the chat. So thanks, everyone. You will receive a recording and the slides from this webinar. We hope you have a brilliant rest of day and rest of week, and we'll be in touch again soon. Thanks so much, Adam and Nicola. And
Thanks,
everyone,
everyone.
take care. Thank you. Bye.